Hello and welcome to Viewers on News. I am Jawad Tehami. Prime Minister SHEHBAZ Sharif has unveiled the National Economic Transformation Plan 2024 and 29 that has been named as URAAN Pakistan, and it aims to address the key economic challenges through a targeted framework known as 5 E's. These five E's include exports, e-Pakistan, environment and climate change, energy and infrastructure, equity and empowerment. And addressing the ceremony when he was unveiling this particular National Economic Transformation Plan, the Prime Minister said, let me quote him, "Today is a great day. The crux is that in the last 9 months, we negotiated huge challenges and difficulties, and through untiring efforts of the federal governments, provincial governments and our international partners and friends, we've been able to achieve macroeconomic stability, but this is just the beginning of a long journey which would entail sacrifice, blood and sweat to achieve economic growth and finding our lost place among the nations. During the journey from default to development and from stable economy to strong economy, we witnessed several phases and faced difficulties," unquote. In that particular ceremony, Finance Minister Mohammad Aurangzeb talked of increased foreign direct investment in the country, also emphasizing the role of the Special Investment Facilitation Council, also talked specifically about the records being set by the Pakistan stock exchanges, inflation coming down, also the transformation of Federal Board of Revenue, at the same time forecasting 6% GDP growth for the year 2028. Also mentioning that account surplus was achieved in the country after 24 years. This unveiling of URAAN Pakistan, the 5 E's framework to address the key challenges, the importance, the significance of this, what could be expected from this particular plan for the next 5 years on the economic front. To discuss all this, we are honored to be joined in the studio by Dr. Nasir Iqbal, Head Macro Policy Lab, Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Dr. Iqbal, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Also in the studio, we are honored to be joined by Mr. M.Majid Bashir, Economic Policy Expert. Mr. Bashir, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. Later on in the show, we'll be joined by another participant. As they join in, I'll be introducing them. Dr. Iqbal, this URAAN Pakistan, 5 key areas. Now, Prime Minister saying at the outset of his address at the ceremony of unveiling of this particular plan, today is a great day. How important it was to bring in this particular reform plan to steer the economy from stabilization, from stability towards progress.
I think I just read the document. It's a very welcome step, and we must congratulate the entire team, those who are working on this document, and try to make at least a document that gives us some direction to all stakeholders. That this would be the next journey, and they have a very ambitious agenda in terms of the revival of this economy, and it's very good. Like they set a very high growth of around 6%, and we also propose a similar 6 to 7% at least required for the next 10 years. Similarly, they projected like the tax would be increased from 9% to at least 40% of GDP. That could be again very ambitious target. They also plan to increase the investment, especially from the private sector, substantially. And one of the key factors they highlighted, they will focus on the export, and within the export their prime target is the IT-based export and freelancing. So these are the steps that really they are looking for, and I must say that this is a very welcome step. And if we look into the medium term plan, and this would be like a next 3 to 4 years plan, probably government would put all the energy behind this, and especially all stakeholders are involved in terms of materializing this 5 years plan. As a way forward, we have to unpack these targets and try to come up with some action oriented steps that really put all these agenda, all these framework into a more of actionable things. So let's first we aim, like if we are increasing our IT export up to 10 billion, what kind of action we are really looking for. For example, we have to focus on the penetration of this internet all over the country. It should be strengthened. Also the other facilities like the easy exchange of money with the international financial institutions, and also the way that if the freelancer would work in this domain, they must be encouraged and they must be supported in terms of making their transactions. So these kind of stuff really looking for and try to create a balance. Currently it's more look like infrastructure driven like agenda. It's good, we have to focus on infrastructure, but let's be more on the soft infrastructure of the country, and that really would be like a point where we really transform our economy into a more sustainable and lively economy.
Soft infrastructure, a very important point that you've made. I'll come back to you to take your deeper understanding regarding as to this particular thing. Also, you talked of the actionable agenda in order to transform all these themes into concrete action in order to steer the economy on the right trajectory. Let me bring in Mr. Bashir into the discussion. Mr. Bashir, specifically talking about these 5 E's, this URAAN Pakistan, the flight of Pakistan on the economic front. How do you look at the intention of the incumbent authorities here in Pakistan? We saw that Pakistan avoided the default, from that default towards stability, and now the government has given a concrete plan in order to take that economy from stability towards progress, rather a robust progress. Your understanding regarding the intention of the authorities?
Thank you, Jawad. I think that this is one of the agenda of the government for the last few months. I think government is very active to initiate a lot of economic reforms to attract the foreign investment and to just revamp the domestic structure of political and economic structure of Pakistan. And I think this is one of the part of that. You know, along with others, we have SIFC, we have, other sectoral reforms which government is trying to initiate. I think this is a very sincere effort on the part of the government to take all the stakeholders, the political stakeholders, the non-political stakeholders, international community on board, and just to, sensitize that how Pakistan is, looking forward to have serious economic reforms in the country, long-standing economic reforms. I think this is a step towards that direction.
Right, Dr. Iqbal, now already you mentioned that exports are of critical importance. This is the first area that has been touched upon in this particular 5-year plan. Exports, of course, help in driving the economic growth and increasing the foreign exchange earnings and boost the country's global trade position. You already talked of the actionable agenda, specifically talking about this first E. What sort of actions would you recommend to the authorities that could be brought in order to get the maximum out of it?
I think it's a very valid. I just wrote and opened for a newspaper, and probably it will be online by tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, where I just try to focus on this one element, that is what we called a business. And I just label that maybe it would be just since something like speech from the Prime Minister. I call we have to declare this 2025 as a business year. To me, the business year means we have to create an export surplus. And for that, I give a very clear strategy. First of all, I make it a very strong statement that we should be abolish all kind of NOC through executive order. That could be the first step. The second step, we really want to enter into the market. That is the key thing, because we have to create an export surplus. How we can register a firm, how we can register a business. Currently, we need a lot of approval from the different authorities. I call we have to go with the one-liner statement that if I have a valid CNAC and a valid bank account, let me allow and through an online mobile form to register my business. Then I will try to do my business. If I violate any kind of law of the government of the state, probably then the government should intervene. Before that, they should allow me to do any kind of business that come under the Constitution of Pakistan, and they are allowed. So this could be the second point. Third point I highlighted in my article is just to bring a confidence for the local investor. Currently, our main focus is on the foreign investment. On the other side, if we really give incentive to our local investor, probably that would be a key to create export surplus, because the current opportunity is to expand business, not to create a new business. first our focus should be the expanding the business, because the current businessman working in our country have a confidence, have a some sort of a thinking about the country, and he or she can expand the business. So that's what where we have to facilitate them. We have to create an environment with a predictable policy. And if government make a clear intention after this URAAN document that look, this would be our next 5-year policy for business, let stick on that policy and ask the local business to come and do any kind of business. We incentivize through creating a ease of doing business. Probably in the coming year, government also work on the easing in term of the energy, that's currently very high, but the private sector would be forthcoming even if with the high rate. So this is the another element. The last element I really put into that the currently the financial sector is mainly linked with the government. They don't rely on the private sector in terms of loaning. We have to encourage and we have to force our banking sector to target private business. Until unless they create a package, they create a program for the private investor, private businessman, they are not forthcoming, because the interest rate previously was high. Luckily, it's now come down to 13%, and probably in the coming month or so, it will be further go down to around 10%. So that would be a decent discount rate. So it's not very high. But no, if the government is only taking a loan from the commercial bank and they are relying on the government, then probably they don't concern about the private sector. So these 4 elements are crucial as actionable step, and I think if a prime minister with a one speech would declare all these things as a compulsory and then make a carrot and stick policy for all ministries, and they set a target given in this document, ask them the relevant minister and the secretary would be responsible to achieve the desired target. PMF should only have a dashboard where they can only monitor whether this ministry is working well. If not, then there must be some sort of stick.
Right. Let me bring in another participant in the show, Mr. Shikoh Atif, senior economist, joining us on Skype. Mr. Atif, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. I can see a smile on your face right now. How happier you are. The government has given a direction by introducing this 5-year Pakistan's National Economic Transformation Plan. How do you look at that particular thing? Is that the cause? Is that the reason for your smile at the moment?
Well, you're smart to to catch that. Absolutely. As the other participants also talked about it, and you mentioned all the positive macro indicators are very heartening, and we are very excited. The only thing is, and these people, the people in charge right now, we feel sometimes we get doom and gloom. We feel like we are in difficult situation. But let me remind you, we were in a more dire situation back in 2013 when the 2013-2018 plan with the 3 E's was going in place. And way before it was expected to yield results, it yielded results. So I am very about this 5 plan. I'm very enthusiastic. And in the past 1 year, as you sort of touched upon it, there have been like many very positive macro indicators. The only thing is now we just need to get the macro positive indicators to trickle down to micro level where people like you and I start seeing the tangible results of the great work that has been done by this government in the past 1 year. I won't say too much, but just on the tax collection side, just the 29% increase in that, just that is mind-boggling performance by this government. And of course, everyone knows about the interest rates. My only concern is going forward is the IMF review, which is coming up. But we can talk a little bit about that later if you wish.
Right, Mr. Atif, when we look at these 5 E's in this Flight to Pakistan or URAAN Pakistan package or the plan which has been unveiled by the government, starting from exports, then E-Pakistan, then environment and climate change, energy and infrastructure, equity and empowerment. If we look at the order of it, how they are set from exports, ending at equity and empowerment, how do you look at the order, the way they're being set?
You know, sustainability first. We have to sustain ourselves first before we can think about anything else. And the only way for us to sustain ourselves is to focus completely on exports. And you know, the one thing that I would give Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif full credit on is from the very first, from the very beginning, he's had a laser-like focus on technology as a means of our sort of growing out of the abysmal sort of performance. Because when we were focusing on textile, etc., a lot of that export necessitated a lot of import of raw material. So our balance of trade was getting out of whack because we had to import a lot of raw material before we could export. But technology and the focus there, and so the export is so clearly uh, uh, prioritized to your point because it just we can't sustain without it.
Right. Mr. Atif, please stay with us. Let me go once again back to Mr. Bashir. Mr. Bashir, now your understanding regarding exports in terms of attracting the foreign direct investment, also increasing the forex reserves, how important it is to focus on exports, and what are those key areas on which the focus could be put in order to enhance the country's exports?
I think SIFC is very clear that how we are offering things to the international community. And I think Pakistan, one thing is very important. I agree with Dr. Saab that the government should focus on the target, very objective, and try to find out the way how we can improve this. Along with that, you have to adopt the international norms and standard of business. That is very important. I think we have to understand that if you want to go to the international market, you have to follow the legal regime of that country, you have to follow the WTO regimes as well, and you have to make necessary arrangement that your business community must aware where they are going. I mean, that is very important for Pakistan. URAAN Pakistan is, I think, a long-standing economic reform towards the agenda the government has. Along with that, if you allow me to say, the statement of the finance minister today, that is about Charter of Economy. I think if you read both of them simultaneously, it means on the one side, the government is going to offer what we have. And on the another side, we are domestically trying to sensitize our political forces that support us, because that is the embargo. If you have an insecure domestic regime, nobody will come to your country. And that offer was made in 2017. It was re-offered by this government that we should be on a one page to understand that Pakistan need a political stability as well.
Now, Mr. Bashir, now you talked about the political stability, which is very important for getting the economic stability. There shouldn't be an atmosphere of uncertainty. Now, there was an offer repeatedly, as we have talked, you also mentioned, by the government officials of chalking out a charter of economy, the consensus of all the political stakeholders and other stakeholders also. Now, once this particular program, this plan for the next 5 years has been unveiled with key specific areas, that these are the areas that we have to actually focus on, has the stage been set for bringing in all the stakeholders on a certain platform to finally going towards chalking out the Charter of Economy?
I think when you offer something to the international community and to your business community, so along with that, you have to offer certain things. I think these economic reforms are giving many things to the business community and international community and investor to understand how Pakistan trying to respond to the international community. I think every single package, if you go through the nitty-gritty of this URAAN Pakistan, you will find out a lot of legal things, lot of waivers, lot of concessions to the international community. And in the same manner, I think Pakistan should concentrate on how we can involve the business community, where the business community is already available in Pakistan. They need similar sort of a treatment. They are expecting similar sort of treatment from the government, because on the one hand you are trying to attract the international community, but on the other hand you are losing such a huge potential, that is in terms of private stakeholders, business community. I think Pakistan is now in a phase that we have to take both these stakeholders simultaneously to revamp the economic activity in Pakistan. I think if we are ignoring domestically the business potential, I think we cannot achieve the business potential internationally.
Right, Dr. Iqbal, now has the state been set to invite all the stakeholders to sit and talk and deliberate and chalk out a charter of economy after this particular direction has been given by the government?
I think it's, this could provide a starting point for the way that you are narrating that we need a charter of economy to deliberate on that. Look, we have to separate this economy from other aspects, whatever it is called. You call it a political narrative, you call it a cultural thing, you call it a religious thing. We should have to separate all these things, because all have a different domain, all have a different need and the action. So if the government is clear, and it will give an automatically sense that this is the charter of economy and we have to follow this, because there is a strong, after 18th Amendment, province have a very key role in terms of materializing this entire document. So if they are on board and they follow this blueprint as a starting point, and they must materialize in their annual budget, in their annual plan, in their annual action, then probably there would be a win-win situation. But if there is a disagreement at the federation, at the province level, then probably it would be very difficult to materialize these things, because ultimately Islamabad is a very small territory, and the other is all about the provinces, and the provinces after 18th Amendment are fully empowered to take their own economic and social decision. But if this is a plan that really agreed by all stakeholders, and we must encourage and they sit together, if they have any objection, if they have any concern, if they have any suggestion, it could be a live document. Let's make it a live document and make it a very visible document that should be adopt the coming years changes of month and years and so on. But the one thing should be clear, whatever we promise to our business community, our local business, our individual, we should keep that promise as it. Even if it is a hard time, even if it's a soft time, whatever the situation is, we should follow the fundamental principle that if we give them the incentive, we should keep that. If we fix some discount rate, we should keep that. If we allow them some rebates, if we allow them some holidays, let's keep that. That would give a confidence, and I fully agree with the other participant that the export surplus and the growth would only come from the domestic business. You can attract the foreign FDI, and look at the number over the last 3 to 4 months. There is a negative FDI. That is like some sort of thing that we have to consider in coming month and year. Similarly, if we look into the way we are negotiating this IPP, it's a very good step.
FDI has increased, hasn't it?
The net flow.
Okay.
If you look into the net, that's the thing that I'm talking. Overall, the FDI inflow is on the increasing trend.
Yeah.
Similarly, the key part of this whole narrative or whole document that I emphasize is to focus on the domestic business. We have to encourage our demand. We have to treat equally as we are treating international
What could
partners.
be the key identified areas as per your understanding when you specifically emphasize on facilitating the domestic businesses?
Yes, I just highlighted there are not so many things. The first and super important is to create ease of doing business. It is very easy term, and we are asking this term over the last few years, and the government said that's what we are working. No, just make a one-liner decision that after this there would be no restriction of doing any business. This will give a hope to the local business. Then of course there is uninterrupted power supply, and also the internet. That's the key. The internet become a necessary for all kind of businesses. It's not about like you are globally treating a business and you need it. It's everywhere in the house, at the individual level. even at the university. It's everywhere. So you should consider it as a basic necessity.
So, Mr. Shikoh Atif, now the continuity of policy, another term that have been mentioned here by one of our participants, the Charter of Economy. The government officials offering all the stakeholders sit and deliberate and chalk out a Charter of Economy in order to make the country's economy go on the trajectory of progress. Now, with the unveiling of this URAAN Pakistan, the 5 E's framework, do you think the stage has been set and it would become easier for the authorities in order to convince all the stakeholders to sit and deliberate and have a national consensus for the larger national interest and chalk out a Charter of Economy? This plan is from 2024 to 29. It will go on for next 5 years. And how do you look at this particular plan through the lens of that term, the continuity of policy as well?
So you raised a couple of really important points. One about getting all the stakeholders to the table. Might I remind you, one of the most important stakeholders, be it international, is not only for Pakistan but globally right now, is the new US administration that is coming into the offing. And a lot of our domestic policies and the IMF's next tranche is linked to how our relationships go with the next incoming US administration. While locally, whatever could be done has been done immaculately. What you said about stability, bringing stability, and the results it yields. We have a clear example of that with our stock market. The stock market doesn't want this administration or that administration. All it wanted was stability. And this government was able to provide it stability, and it has yielded results. Uh, One point that I would make about bringing all stakeholders to the table, unfortunately, and it happens with all democratic countries across the world, and we should separate economic, especially long-term survival, from um, party petty politics or whatever. But they're unfortunately in a political system. Not everyone is praying for the success of a present regime, which is unfair and really, really sad, really disappointing. But there is always a faction which is like saying, "I hope this plan doesn't succeed. Otherwise, we will not be voted in next time around." To be frank, I hope I'm not being too clear on my messaging or being politically incorrect. But that's kind of my view on this, that it's really difficult to separate economics from politics sometimes.
Mr. Shikoh Atif, let's specifically talk about the second E, the E Pakistan, the digital transformation to get the innovation, enhancing the efficiency. We've also known that the government, with all its intention, is very serious in order to facilitate this particular sector of information technology. A number of incentives also introduced in the current fiscal year's budget. How important is that? And setting it at number 2 in the order of importance, how do you look at that?
Well, internationally, there is a lot of good news coming that way, coming the way of cheap energy. And if Pakistan can this coming round, we got an opportunity during COVID when oil prices were at rock bottom. Unfortunately, we were not able to avail that opportunity and secure our oil supply for the next 5 to 10 years. We were not able to do that. I hope this time around, all the analysts assume next year is going to be a year of a lot of energy surplus. Again, as I said, with the US administration, their focus is as they put it, drill baby drill, which means there'll be so much drilling of oil and a lot of a glut of energy all across the world. And I hope Pakistan can benefit from that. You talk a little bit about innovation in that. Yesterday, Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, was saying, why is the US the hub of innovation all across the world? Why have so much innovation and entrepreneurship come from the United States compared with all other countries in the world? And he came up with one reason, and I will give you that one reason. That one reason is, for a project that has only 10% chances of succeeding, in the US you can raise $50 million in seed money, which means investment money, for a project which only has 10% chance of succeeding. So that's the kind of odds that that's the kind of environment that you have to create. And in Pakistan, the place which can create that environment is the financial institutions and the banks. Now, the State Bank of Pakistan has been doing a very good job of incentivizing. However, uh, sometimes from a distance, I'll be frank with you, a lot of these people come from the people who head the State Bank are previous bankers themselves. So sometimes it looks like they have the sympathies, their sympathies don't lie with the government, but they lie with the with the banks. But that's a debate for another day. But you talked about this, so that's the kind of environment we need to put money behind our 60% amazing youth and give them the opportunity to unleash their potential if the second E has to come to fruition.
Right, Mr. Bashir. Now, the Pakistan Stock Exchange setting the records in the recent past. Almost on every day there was a bullish trend, setting a all-time record also recently. How do you look at that particular performance and what that basically is indicative of as far as encouraging the local business is concerned? Is there any connection?
Yeah, I think due to all these things which we are discussing for the last few minutes, that you are very, Pakistan is very, I will say, have disclosed all, part of the discussion, disclose all part of the economic reform and share with the international community that how Pakistan is serious to invite, foreign investment. Pakistan is very keen to have bilateral investment treaties, free trade agreements, and simultaneously Pakistan is trying to have relations with the Gulf state, because they are the closest, and we have a very friendly relation with these countries, and we want that the Gulf state should participate in an economic reform of the country. I think all these indicators are giving strength to a common person to invest more money. The stock market is a reflection that how much people are satisfied with the economic reforms. That is very important to understand. I think that is because of the government reforms. Government is showing everything to the general public.
Doesn't that also show that the government is also at the same time focusing on facilitating the local businesses as well, where it is actually eyeing to attract the foreign direct investment?
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you. And simultaneously, if you see, the government is also trying to handle this issue, main economic issues politically as well, because Charter of Democracy is also a sign of satisfaction to the commoners, because if the government, because this is the main issue, Pakistan is unfortunately facing constitutional, political, and economic crisis for the last few months. But now the government has, is coming up in front of the international community with a different mode, with a different, attitude, I will say. Giving all these things to the international community by URAAN Pakistan, SIFC. I think this is a sign to the international community that please join Pakistan. Because if you go through all the agendas of these economic reforms, you will find out every level of satisfaction which Pakistan faced for the last few years. We were highlighted by the international investor that Pakistan has some internal security issues. But you can go through the mandate of SIFC. We have involved the establishment in that. For that particular reason, that was the fear of the international community that law and order situation is not good in Pakistan. Simultaneously, Pakistan is trying to, hold negotiations with the political forces. That is very important for Pakistan because, and I am very happy, if you go to the Charter of Democracy, you know, the main agenda of the Charter of Democracy was to politically have a consensus of the political parties to have reforms in Pakistan. Charter of Economy is a sole agenda that how we can sit and address our economic issues in Pakistan. I think this is a sign which will give more strength to Pakistan, you know, offers to international community. And I'm very glad that the government has very rightly offered this Charter of Economy to the political forces.
Right, Dr. Iqbal, environment and climate change happens to be the third head under those 5 E's framework. Environment and climate change, we've seen Pakistan being hit with the natural disasters because of the climate change induced phenomenon worldwide. Pakistan contributing less than 1% of the greenhouse emissions worldwide, yet bearing the brunt of all those wrongdoings of the industrialized nations. How to become more resilient? What is required on that particular front to address those adverse impacts of climate change and securing our own environment in order to have that food security and protecting those natural resources?
I think on that front we have to work two type of strategy. One, that what we call the green financing, we have to push the global community and convince them that we are struggling due to the mess that you people have created, and we have to be very forthcoming and very aggressive in terms of explaining our issue to the world community and telling them that this is the issue that you people have created. So, this is the one part of the strategy that should be. And the second is our internal, like the way we can deal with the climate issue. The way that we are dealing is the model, the growth model that we adopted is a brick and mortar model, where our main strength lie on the physical infrastructure. That itself has a lot of issue with the climate, and we are not addressing those issues, because if you look into the growth rate of this vehicle, those are coming onto the road, and how we can accommodating by making another flyers, making another node, that create a lot of issue for the sustainability of our environment. To protect that, we have to make a very long term vision about the climate issues for our country, because the key issue that we will face in the coming year is this smoke that recently we have, then this the pollution, and the third key important issue would be the water. The water scarcity will be the key issue in the coming year, because the water table is going down by down every day due to the massive consumption and unplanned consumption. So, we have to address these with the methodologically.
Okay, so here is the scenario. Now, let's go back to that particular first head, exports. Does that call for more of industrialization, more of productivity here at the local level, which is going to produce the products which are going to be sold out in the outer world? That's how the exports are going to be increased. For that, we need to have energy.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, how difficult it is to navigate through this particular very thin line in order to ensure that the exports are continuously enhanced, at the same time that our environment is not affected adversely because of that industrialization that we are actually eyeing in order to enhance those exports?
I think there is a trade-off little bit at the upfront if we are really looking for export surplus at very upfront. Maybe next couple of years, next 3 years, our focus should be on the one element that would be export surplus, along with keeping in view that we have to maintain our current level of environment by keeping in way like this regeneration of forest would be a one key element, then protecting our reservoir, and then the rain harvesting mechanism. These kind of small activities really encourage. Then of course, we can convince the local industrialists that look, the environment is key and you have to transform your industry gradually. It would be very difficult for any country like us to transform our industry abruptly into a very climatic friendly industry. Even it is very difficult for the Scandinavian countries as well. So, you can't do in a 1 year or two, it would be a long term planning. But the first priority should be export oriented approach by the government. For that, they must facilitate the local businessman. And to me, the facilitation is not giving them the subsidy, is not giving them the bailout packages, is giving them the environment, is giving them a sense of credibility of the policy and the will by the government that look, we are here to support you.
So, what is this PSX performance indicative of? Isn't it that indicative of that the government is trying to facilitate the domestic investors also at the same time?
Yeah, of course, you can think like that. Maybe you can fix some criteria because we are subsidizing the few sector vary from the inception. So, but they didn't grow. Let's fix some very specific activities within that sector. If it has a spillover effect, if it has a potential to create a new job, then government can facilitate. Even with the tax holidays, that could be a very easy. And that can be adjusted by reducing this government unwanted spending. So there could be a trade-off. So government should be very clear in terms of making all these adjustments. And this time there is no way that we can have a very flop model. We have the only one option to grow is to execute whatever the plan we have. For that, we have to appoint right person for the right job. This incompetency is basically a key hurdle in the failure of all previous actions. And if we really want a success, we have to focus on the quality and we have to appoint a competitive and eligible person for that post. If we compromise on that, and we end up with the same fate.
Your point is taken. Mr. Shikoh Atif, now this industry, for industrialization to thrive, we need a continuous supply of energy. Now, energy is that particular head, the fourth head, energy and infrastructure under these 5 E's. So, energy, how to ensure that we get that industry thriving at the same time keeping our environment protected?
So, Jawad, I don't know if you know or not, I wrote a case study for York University when I was teaching economics there, which is being taught there and at Yale. So I know a little bit about the environment. I won't bore you with a lot of stuff, but the focus, as the fellow participant just mentioned, I think for most developing countries and for Pakistan ought to be on industry at whatever cost we can get to it right now, because we can't afford, so the atmosphere which is in China right now will be on top of the United States in 2.5 days. The thickness of our atmosphere on top of us is 120 kilometers. It's that thick. So I won't bore you with the climate statistics, but there is a lot of work being done about how to mitigate the negative impact of carbon dioxide, how to mitigate the negative impact of methane. That is something, and as you said in your introduction to this point, Pakistan, unfortunately, it's less than 1% of emissions, but it suffers the brunt of the impact of mismanagement of other countries. So, if there is one thing that Pakistan needs to do better in this regard, is to make other nations aware of the impact that our people suffer with tremendous floods, with tremendous natural disasters, and look for compensation. I mean, the compensation for all the flood victims that was promised in the prior years, even 60%
We're
of
short of time. I'll have to end the show over here. It was really an insightful discussion, a very insightful take from your side. Mr. Shikoh Atif joining us on Skype, senior economist. Thank you very much for being with us. Dr. Nasir Iqbal, head macro policy lab at PIDE. Thank you very much for your time. Mr. M.Majid Bashir, economic policy expert. Thank you very much for your time also for being with us on the show tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.